You say it all the time. To a partner, to a parent, maybe to a dog who doesn't understand words but wags anyway. 3 words, 8 letters. And you probably said it today without thinking. But here's the strange part. For most of human history, those 3 words didn't exist. Not in any language, not in any culture, not in any cave, settlement, or early city on Earth. The concept they carry, this named, spoken, declared emotion, is shockingly new. And what your ancestors felt instead was something far older, far stranger, and far more honest than anything you've ever said out loud. This is the real story of love, not the greeting card version, the ancient one. Go back 300,000 years. Homo sapiens has just arrived. Your direct ancestor is standing at the edge of a fire, surrounded by a small group of people, maybe 12, maybe 30. Everyone in the world they will ever know is right there in that circle. There is no word for love. There is no ceremony for it. There is no song, no poem, no declaration, but something is happening. Something deep and chemical and real, and it is running the entire show. Anthropologist Helen Fisher spent decades studying what love actually is at its biological core. Her research, conducted across 37 different cultures, found the same 3 systems active in every human brain, regardless of where they were born or what language they spoke. The first is lust, driven by testosterone and estrogen. It pushes toward reproduction. The second is attraction, powered by dopamine and norepinephrine. It creates the focused, almost obsessive pull toward one specific person. The third is attachment, fueled by oxytocin and vasopressin. It builds the calm, deep bond that makes you stay. 3 separate systems, 3 separate brain regions, all ancient, all wordless. Your ancestors didn't say, "I love you." They showed up. That's the part modern life has quietly buried. For most of human history, love wasn't an utterance. It was an action. It was the person who brought back food when you were sick. The one who sat beside you in the dark when the fire went low. The one your body relaxed around, because your nervous system, evolved over millions of years, knew the difference between threat and safety, knew who was safe, and held them close without needing a word for it. Neuroscientist Stephanie Cacioppo, one of the world's leading researchers on loneliness and connection, has shown that the brain processes social bonding and physical safety in overlapping regions. The same circuitry that tells you a predator is near is the same circuitry that registers the absence of someone you love. To your brain, deep attachment is not a metaphor. It is survival data. So when your ancestor watched a mate walk away from camp and didn't return by nightfall, that hollow feeling in the chest wasn't romantic longing. It was an alarm. The alarm that said, your survival cluster is incomplete. Find them. Fix it. Love, in its original form, was a tracking system. Now think about language. The earliest known written declarations of romantic love appear in ancient Mesopotamia, roughly 4,000 years ago. A Sumerian poem, sometimes called the Love Song of Shu-Sin, contains what many scholars consider the first written expression of romantic devotion. It is tender, it is specific, it is unmistakably human. But it is also 296,000 years after your species first walked the earth. Language arrived late to the party. Words for love arrived even later. And what happened when those words arrived? Something quietly shifted. Because once you can name a feeling, you can also fake it. You can perform it. You can write it in a text message you don't mean, say it to avoid a fight, rehearse it before a dinner you're dreading. The word created a distance between the emotion and its expression that had never existed before. Your ancestors had no such gap. Their love had no language to hide behind. It either showed up in behavior or it didn't exist at all. Psychologist John Gottman spent 40 years studying couples, in his famous Love Lab at the University of Washington. He tracked thousands of pairs and identified what he called bids for connection, small, often wordless moments where one partner reaches toward the other, a glance across a table, a hand on a shoulder, turning toward someone when they speak. His research found that what predicted whether couples stayed together had almost nothing to do with how often they said they loved each other. It had everything to do with whether they responded to those bids, whether they showed up in the small moments. Your ancestors would have understood this immediately. They lived it every day. There is another layer here that almost nobody talks about. Early human groups were not built on romantic pairs the way modern families are. The structure was communal. Children were raised by the group. Older members were protected by the collective. Mates shifted across a lifetime in ways that would make modern divorce lawyers redundant. Love was not a transaction between two people who signed a contract. It was a distributed system. It flowed through the group. You loved your children the way you loved your band. Fiercely, instinctively, without needing to articulate it, because your survival depended on theirs. This changes how you read your own feelings. That warmth you get around certain people, the ease, the lowering of your guard, the way your voice changes, that isn't just emotion. That is millions of years of attachment circuitry doing exactly what it was built to do, identifying your people, holding them close, keeping the group alive. So where does that leave the three words? Here's the counterintuitive truth. Saying I love you may be one of the strangest things humans do. Not because it's meaningless, but because it asks language to carry something language was never built to hold. Every version of that phrase across every culture in history is an approximation, a rough translation of something the body already knows. Your nervous system recognized your person long before your mouth ever said their name. Your oxytocin system was bonding you to them while you were still deciding if you liked them. The declaration is a very recent invention layered on top of a very ancient architecture. And here's what that means for you right now. The research is consistent across decades of attachment science. The people who feel most loved are almost never the ones who hear it most. They are the ones who feel it most, who are responded to, who are shown up for, who are tracked, not in the obsessive sense, but in the ancient sense. Noticed, remembered, included. Your ancestors had no word for love. But the people in their circle knew exactly where they stood. They felt it in the shared fire, the shared food, the body that moved toward them in the dark. So the next time you say those three words, really think about what comes before them and after them, whether your behavior matches the declaration, whether the person on the receiving end feels it before you even speak. Because that, the felt thing, the shown thing, the ancient tracked thing, that's what your ancestors understood. That is what the brain was built to need. And tonight, when you turn towards someone instead of away, when you show up in the small moment they needed you to show up in, you are doing something older than language, something older than civilization, something that kept your entire lineage alive across 300,000 years of darkness and fire and uncertainty. You never needed the words. You just needed to be there.